All right, hello and welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to talk about some hunter-gatherer information and nomadic peoples. So, our three main topics for today are hunter-gatherers, nomads, and we'll talk a little bit about movement of herds and things. Kind of our main idea for today, as you'll see by the light bulb there, is that before people could efficiently farm, they had other ways to find food or gain access to food. So, although Paleolithic people didn't have the same types of foods that we have today, they still had a variety of foods that they could find if they looked for them. During the Paleolithic age, humans lived as hunter gatherers. Hunter gatherers are people who hunt animals and gather wild plants to eat, hence the name hunter gatherer. These tasks were made easier and safer by the fact that early humans worked together and shared the jobs. Now, while people in the Paleolithic age did live in in groups, they were pretty small. They were only around 30 people um, because it was hard to maintain a group of too many more people than that. They also had very gender-defined roles. Men would hunt. They would hunt by herding animals into groups or over cliffs sometimes, which is kind of interesting to think about. And then women and young children would gather fruits and nuts. So, because animal herds moved with the seasons, the people moved to follow after them. So, we can refer to hunter gatherers as nomads. Nomads are people who move from place to place. Nomadic hunter gatherers traveled light. They had to carry everything that they had with them. So, all of their possessions, like stone tools and clothes, would move with them whenever they would move. So they had to learn to adapt to new environments outside of Africa. So some of the things that they did were making needles that enabled them to sew warm clothes out of animal skins. They also learned to find caves for shelter because they protected them from the worst winter weather. People also learned how to make shelters of wood, bone, and animal skins to provide temporary camps. So, like I was saying earlier, hunter gatherers were nomadic, so they followed herds of megafauna. Remember, these are large animals that lived about 11,000 plus years ago. So they followed the herds of megafauna as they moved from place to place. The herds migrated with the seasons and entered new environments created by the changing ice age climate. So, for example, we talked a little bit about the Beringia land bridge. It that allowed herds of woolly mammoths to cross over into North America with hunter gatherers following closely behind them. So that's one way that people would migrate into new areas like North America. So imagine trying to hunt an animal as big as the woolly mammoth or protect yourself against the saber-toothed cat. Um, it wasn't easy, right? So it took a lot of intelligence, teamwork, and social tools. So this led to the Paleolithic people inventing a lot of new types of tools that hadn't really been seen before. So things like harpoons, especially barbed harpoons, spear throwers, and bows and arrows. Um, these weapons also, you might have noticed, can all be used from a difference. Again, imagine the size difference between you and a woolly mammoth. That woolly mammoth could do a lot of damage if you were up close and personal with them. So early nomadic or hunter-gatherers would create and invent tools and weapons that could be used from a distance to make things easier and safer for them. So the other thing to remember is that with how big woolly mammoths were, even though the risks were really big, the rewards were really big too. A woolly mammoth could feed a group of individuals for months. So something that you might be able to guess with the Paleolithic people moving around so much is that they ran into a lot of groups of other people. So you'd have a couple, two or three small groups of 30 or so individuals, and they would run into each other, moving around, following sometimes the same groups of animals. Now, during the cold months, there could be a lot of conflict. Um, Food and shelter was scarce. It was hard for people to survive a lot of the times during those cold months. So there was a lot of conflict and fighting between groups. However, during warmer periods of times, there was plentiful food. It was much easier to find shelter because you didn't have to worry about protection from the cold and things like that. So it's very likely that human groups interacted more happily and would even share ideas and cultures and things between groups, including new types of technologies like the weapons that we talked about a little earlier. So something that we're going to find is that these interactions, the positive interactions, helped to spread new ideas and paved the way for some pretty big changes in human development. All right, so two main takeaways for this chapter. Remember, hunter-gatherers had to carry all their possessions with them because they followed herds of megafauna for food. And then they also would gather nuts and fruits to supplement that food. Thanks for listening, guys. Go ahead and check in Canvas, see what your assignment is, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.